It's been an emotional roller coaster and brutal journey for fans of The Last of Us factions who are waiting for the much anticipated sequel. And a lot of the struggle has largely been around expectations. When The Last of Us Part 2 was announced in 2016, the expectation was that a multiplayer mode and follow-up to the very underrated Factions mode from the original Last of Us game would come out right alongside it, just like it happened with the last 4 Naughty Dog games. And that expectation was later confirmed, but then unconfirmed, and finally reset to be a separate experience. But since that revelation in 2019, Factions fans had no idea when to expect more news. Would this game come out a mere few months after The Last of Us Part 2 was released, or would it be a few years? And what exactly could we expect this game to be? An enhanced version of the original, or something completely different? We were in the dark. And it was a long 3 years until finally, at the 2022 Summer Games Fest, we began to see a little bit of the light. Neil Druckmann got on stage and gave us some clarity about this project, with a concept art and much more news promised for 2023. Well, I guess you could say we did finally get some more news, but it's not the type of news we were hoping for, or even saw coming. Dr. Pooplove here, and today I want to talk about the uncertain future of The Last of Us Factions 2. And I'll be honest with you all, this one's gonna get a little dark, but I promise, if you wait until the end, there is a little bit of light. And I will also answer the question that we all have on our minds. Is Factions 2 canceled? Let's get into it. So, in the immediate aftermath of the PlayStation Showcase, one of the biggest questions was, of course, where the heck was Factions 2? It seemed like a slam dunk. I mean, even the lead video editor was teasing working on a trailer for it way back in September of 2022. And with all the word from Naughty Dog leading up to the news we would get this year, this was the moment, right? And we actually have come to find out that they were originally planning to show the trailer here. Jeff Grubb, who did leak the existence of the showcase ahead of time, confirmed this. And oh my gosh, just the thought of it, we were so close to seeing the long-awaited reveal of this game, but it wasn't there. And as usual, we started the cycle of pointing to the next event and trying to rationalize the move with clown makeup fully lathered on. But 2 days later, Naughty Dog, hearing all the distress from the community about the no-show of Factions 2 at the PlayStation Showcase, and wanting to reassure us that, okay, let's be real, Naughty Dog was just trying to get ahead of Jason Schreier's impending article of doom. And don't worry, we will get to that. But yeah, Naughty Dog decided to be a little transparent here and share with the community that Factions 2 needed more time. And regardless of why they chose to actually say something, you do have to give them some props for speaking up, because us multiplayer fans really deserve some transparency and deserve to have a little heads up that, yeah, this game is going to take more time than we thought. Communications on matters like this is critical, because faction fans have been left in the dark on so much, and we haven't really been sure what to expect and when to expect it. We don't even know what this game is, or what this game is even titled. Now, in this post, Naughty Dog also confirmed that they're working on a new single player, which I understand this was likely just to divert the story a bit and offer some positive Naughty Dog news. But honestly, I'm not letting that distract me. I don't care about that right now. We know that Naughty Dog is working on something else. How many times are we going to pretend that that is actually some sort of news? Factions is what is important here. And I do think that the Factions fans deserved the sole focus of this post. But okay, so Naughty Dog put this statement out very quickly on Friday, which didn't really make sense at first, but then very shortly thereafter comes Jason Schreier's article of doom, and suddenly it does. Now, according to this article, undisclosed sources at Naughty Dog revealed to Jason that the delays were due to an internal Sony review, where Sony and Bungie have been going around rigorously vetting live service games in development. We know Sony has been pretty cutthroat lately, sunsetting Dreams and closing Pixel Opus, and that extends to these live service entries. We know Deviation Games apparently apparently did not pass this test, as they recently ended up laying off a bunch of employees and canceling the project that PlayStation was supporting. Naughty Dog apparently was also reviewed, and Bungie identified issues, particularly that they think this game won't keep players engaged for a long time. And yeah, after 10 years of playing factions, I have some thoughts on this one. First of all, I thought Bungie was brought on more so to be consultants and advisors, not kingmakers. I respect what that team has put out. And yeah, I put a lot of hours into Destiny, but I put a lot more hours into a very basic, bare bones game with 3 modes and rampant cheating and little Naughty Dog support, a little game called Factions. Because yes, the gameplay loop at its core is that engaging. The tension and feeling of survival against all odds has made for a wildly refreshing experience that, yes, is different from most other multiplayer games out there, but that is what makes Factions special. And it just kind of irks me to think that Naughty Dog, who is a top studio full of artists who put intention and passion into everything they do to create the very best games, has to sit there and let some studio, a great studio, yes, but they have to let some studio come in and decide their fate. Don't forget, Naughty Dog has a history of creating great multiplayers with very passionate followings. Yeah, they may not have been the biggest in player size, but they were also never given the full attention from Naughty Dog that would have allowed them to reach their true potential. Naughty Dog multiplayer often had to create whatever they could in order to meet the deadline of the much more important single-player game that they were attached to, which makes it all the more impressive what they have been able to accomplish with these multiplayer outings. And the interesting thing with this news here is that this kind of goes against what Neil Druckmann said in an interview when asked about whether Naughty Dog feels pressure from Sony to make a third Last of Us entry. He said that Sony doesn't really tell them what to do. They give them a lot of autonomy, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. Now, along with this aspect comes additional word from Jeff Grubb, who stated that he heard this game looks like a studio's first live service game and that Naughty Dog wanted to do things their own way. Now, to me, the first part of this being a first live service game kind of reads that maybe they didn't put a whole lot of the traditional live service elements into this game, which is perhaps what led Bungie to question its long-term viability. But the second part of this statement about Naughty Dog wanting to do things their own way is typical for Naughty Dog. They do seem to have plans to put something fresh out there in their own unique and artistic vision. This is something that I trust Naughty Dog to do well. Neil Druckmann said in another interview this year that the studio would still be making Crash Bandicoot 17 if they weren't willing to take some risks. Now, I don't know. To me, I almost wish we could see what this vision was, because I totally believe that Naughty Dog can perhaps bring a fresh new take to the live service genre and redefine what success can actually look like within it. But look, we don't know. Perhaps Bungie is right in their assessment, and it does need more work. And perhaps the Naughty Dog devs agree. So yeah, I don't want to hate too hard on Bungie when we just simply don't have the details. I mean, to be fair, Bungie has weathered some great storms. They even have a lot of storied battles against Activision fighting for creative control. So you have to imagine that they have some empathy in this situation, that they aren't going to try to mess too much with Naughty Dog's creative flow. But the thing is, I also don't really trust everyone to really understand factions. The Call of Duties and Fortnites are so popular that you could see a scenario where Naughty Dog is being pressured to make their game more like those. But that is a turnoff for me and many of us who enjoy that this game in many ways goes the other direction, in the direction of scarcity and this cat and mouse game of risk and reward, of slower and more strategic gameplay, and that Naughty Dog spin on even some familiar modes. Even Herman Holst very recently said that they're not looking to make a bunch of Destiny or Fortnite clones with these live service initiatives. And so yeah, a full-throated attempt from such a prestigious studio with a quality story seemed like the right kind of breath of fresh air that the multiplayer scene needs to stop feeling so sterile and stale all these multiplayer games just kind of look like one another. And I don't think that's a good thing. And I think Naughty Dog is the type of team to bring a unique vision and perspective. It's really weird too, because that Haven game with a very forgettable title and a very generic look seemed to be getting the green light. And I don't want to hate too much on that game because we don't know much about it, but it's definitely going to have much more of an uphill battle becoming successful and separating itself from the rest of the herd. Factions is in a unique position in that it has a very powerful name recognition and connection to the Last of Us IP, and a passionate fan base that already exists, including a super passionate subset of that fan base that cares deeply and primarily about Naughty Dog multiplayer. The idea of adding a story with lore to attract that single player crowd with some ways that they can get involved without too much PvP, while also, yes, giving those hardcore multiplayer fans a fresh new experience that they can dive into is just a perfect idea. I mean, this game turned me into a multiplayer gamer. I'm fairly certain that is a case for a lot of Factions fans. I was interested in the single player and playing through the story, but when I found out about Factions, it gripped me enough to convert me into a multiplayer gamer. This IP has that potential, but the decision really lies with Sony here, not Bungie, who is just doing what they were required to do. And so what really makes me angry is that this decision to delay probably has a lot more to do with the cold hard cash. Sony clearly wants to make more money off this project, and yeah, they have to make money, but where were they caring about Naughty Dog multiplayer in the past? It's always been an afterthought, and Naughty Dog has been working on this game for some time, and my guess is this new live service push from Sony, potentially also in addition to the huge success of the Last of Us TV show, got them to actually start paying attention and upping the stakes on this project. But I'm confused as to why they weren't more aware of this monetization vision until now. I suppose they needed Bungie's eyes in order to make this kind of a call. But the thing with Sony is they've been doing a lot of really greedy, money-hungry tactics lately that make me feel as a PlayStation fan that they're just trying to shake me for all my loose change. I do feel that this is hurting their brand to be doing all these tactics, but they haven't really been stopping, and sales seem to be going well, so I guess they don't think that they have to. But it's weird to me because Naughty Dog even hired the Fortnite Battle Pass inventor to monetize this game, but it seems like that wasn't even enough for Sony. And this focus on money has now seemed to trickle down to Naughty Dog. Two such job postings have recently popped up for a financial director and financial manager, and the timing on this certainly implies some things. Some of the responsibilities of these roles include providing data-informed strategies to accomplish project and studio goals while mitigating risk, defining and implementing KPIs as well as mechanics for collecting and analyzing data to monitor performance, and proactively anticipating risk scenarios and recommending mitigation strategies to key stakeholders. And so with this, it seems that Naughty Dog is really trying to take a more active role in tracking their financials as it comes to budget allocation and hitting key performance indicators for specific milestones. This all seems kind of a bit scary, as money seems to be becoming much more of a priority than artistic vision. But as you might expect, the years spent developing Factions 2 has probably been a bit costly and may have prompted Naughty Dog to take a more active role in making sure that things aren't getting off track. And this leads me to the next part of the article, because in seemingly another money-saving tactic, the multiplayer team has been largely scaled back. It seems that the core multiplayer team has had to largely go back to the drawing board, and the team has been significantly pared back, with a skeleton of the team continuing to work and others moving on to help Naughty Dog prioritize their single player games. And this implies that the budget for Factions 2 just may have been descaled. This also reminds me that a few weeks back, there was this post from Naughty Dog Jobs advertising the latest positions, and interestingly, all the multiplayer listings were gone. Many of us, myself included, assumed that that meant that Naughty Dog was actually finally fully staffed up on their multiplayer project, and that the Factions engine was humming along at a good clip. But yeah, it was because they have rescaled and pared back the team. And honestly, this news is pretty heartbreaking. We've been waiting so long for this game, and we know at some point they had gone back to the drawing board already to reinvent this game. Years ago, when the scope expanded to something that had to go beyond just The Last of Us Part 2. We had seen some leaks from 2020 gameplay on Lakeside and Checkpoint, and there was data mines for things like a Seattle-based multiplayer map. But ultimately, the team refocused and decided at some point to move the game to San Francisco. So now the team seems to be having to do some form of this again, clearly pushing this game and delaying this game even further. I don't even want to guess how long, but it's gotta be a long time, to be honest, because even if this team does create a good strategy to turn everything around, they will have to staff it back up again. And look, I'm gonna go crazy if I have to look at more job posts for hints. This has all gotta be pretty hard for the team that has poured so much of their heart and soul into this. Clearly, they were about to show a trailer, but this review flipped things on its head. However this went down, it's gotta hurt morale. But to make matters worse, when this news dropped, Twitter was a complete shit show. Myself included, I was going on a bit of a tweet rampage over this, losing my poop. I had to calm myself down. Feel free to check my Twitter for some of those crazy rants. But in particular, with this Twitter discussion, I'm pretty disappointed in some of the big names in gaming that were immediately shitting on factions, declaring things like it was canceled, and saying things like Naughty Dog should just stick to single player, and not everything needs a multiplayer. I'm not gonna name names, but this was just not the time or place to be saying things like this, and I just kind of feel like these people don't understand. There's a whole passionate player base here that has been waiting for this game, and Naughty Dog isn't new to multiplayer. They have a long history of making them. These pundits are just chronically playing game after game, churning through titles for their reviews and whatnot, and they seem to think that those of us who have played this game for years and have been waiting for 7 years should just go play another game. I'm sorry, but this is the game for us. I haven't been able to find a game like this. Believe me, I've tried to find something else that could scratch that faction's itch. It's not out there. And I think this kind of negativity is just very off-putting from these people who have a lot of influence. And, saying things like this, I don't want it to sway any opinions from those decision makers at Sony or Naughty Dog. And so yeah, things seem pretty dire at the moment. There's been a lot of bad news. But let's start heading to the light. Now, the reality is that while I do think this is a significant body blow to this game, I don't think it's canceled. First of all, if it was canceled, Naughty Dog might as well have bit the bullet and admitted as such. What benefit do they have to further stringing this community along? And look, the thing is, we don't know the full story from Jason Schreier's article. It doesn't specify exactly what the problems were. It also made clear to say that the game wasn't canceled. We don't know how close these sources were to the development of this game. The article didn't even outline what the game is, which I do find a little bit interesting and surprising. While I definitely think this is all true, this is all the case, this is exactly what happened, I think that we don't know everything. I mean, one thing is that whenever these multiplayer devs are talking about this game, they are very excited about what they've put together. And a lot of it is unprompted. There's a tweet a little while ago from Vinith Agarwal saying that he's playing the game and having so much fun. There's talk from Neil Druckmann himself. He says he thinks this game's pretty cool, and he's always talking about how ambitious this team is. I don't think these people would be talking this way if there wasn't something special here. And we even got a little bit of reassurances from the devs after this news hit, like Sammy saying that the kitchen smells great, and Paul Bichet, who said he's still hard at work with a talented team. These things should give us confidence that this is still the case. The Factions 2 is still something special. And look, that doesn't mean that the game doesn't have potential issues. Games get delayed and they need fixes all the time. They just don't have to air it so publicly like this. I genuinely believe that Naughty Dog are looking for ways to correct some of these issues. And while you're taking that kind of time to come up with a plan, you don't want all your extra developers just twiddling their thumbs. This is how Naughty Dog operates anyways. Oftentimes, the multiplayer devs have jumped on to help the single player devs develop. So why would they not take advantage of this time and make more progress on their other initiatives? Let the multiplayer devs come up with a plan, and then everyone can come back to execute. And despite what it seems at first, these financial jobs can also be a very good thing. These types of roles will help keep Naughty Dog more informed and allow leadership to be able to understand and be more proactive if, say, the budget is getting a little out of hand or key milestones aren't being met in a timely fashion. This kind of tracking could help keep the game on track and moving forward in the right direction. And perhaps more importantly, it can allow Naughty Dog themselves to fix or preempt any issues before Sony conducts their reviews with Bungie. This visibility could also actually empower Naughty Dog to save the game from getting the axe. And look, the reality that we have to grapple with as a community is that this game does need to make money for it to exist. I don't like microtransactions, but clearly this is a necessary evil to get what we want here. We want factions to, and thus we need it to be successful financially. And this visibility that's going on at Naughty Dog into their finances can really help Naughty Dog be strategic and do what they need to make enough money to keep Sony happy, but more importantly, justify this game's existence and continued support. These are things that they haven't been able to do with their former multiplayers. They had to drop support fairly early, most likely due to financial realities. I would much rather take a factions game that's going to make it in the long term versus one that's going to fizzle out like all the other multiplayers. Because honestly, this may be their last shot. But beyond all this, I don't think it's going to be canceled because honestly, this concept just has tremendous potential. And Sony is going to have a much easier time making a live service game work with an IP that's already established, with a built-in fan base that has been craving this type of game. And Sony's going to find out sooner or later that these random generic games are only going to do so well if they are flawless. These live service games set on the backdrop of established IP offer Sony a big opportunity to also bridge that gap. Get those staunch, we only want Sony to do single player gamers to come over to the multiplayer side. Factions, after all, did convert me from being a single player only gamer, and it made me more willing to check out tons and tons of other multiplayers. If Naughty Dog just adds some lore and story and ways to play solo, they're golden because the fan base is there. And look, for this reason alone, I don't think Sony is willing to scrap it. And there's even more evidence of the hunger for this type of game out there. There's this game called The Day Before, which, it's funny, it's hard to say if this is even a real game or if these trailers are even accurate representations of what the final product will be, but it does have very similar factions and Tlu vibes, and it was the #1 most wish-listed game on Steam since it was announced. And this is from a studio and an IP that no one knows about. People are craving multiplayer experiences like this, and it's going to be an even easier sell with an established IP. And that really gives me some assurance that Sony must know there's a tremendous market out there. And something else to consider here is Sony is pouring a lot of their budget into these live service endeavors. By 2025, they aim to have 60% of their budget allocated to live service. And you have to imagine that some of that money is going to get lost learning some lessons. I mean, live service at this scale is relatively new for Sony. And again, when you have a concept with this type of potential, I think you, yes, review the work, but you do pour your budget into those types of efforts. You let the teams cook, you let the teams learn, and you put your money into the games that do have that potential. And in their recent 2023 business briefing, Sony still has Naughty Dog listed as one of their major live service developers, even clearly after this all went down with Bungie. They're still planning to have Naughty Dog be part of this initiative. My hope and my bet here is that Bungie did provide good insight and help, and wasn't just blindly criticizing the game. They are, after all, a studio that has had to fight for creative control and for their vision, so they must understand the position of these Naughty Dog devs. My hope is that Naughty Dog is taking this feedback to heart and powering it into an even better product. And look, even if it is pared down a bit, my hope is that they can design this game so that they can expand and enhance and build their way back closer to the original vision, once they've proved that they can monetize a smaller, scoped down version. Look, even Fortnite came out with only a co-op mode, and Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 came out with lots of problems. But look at them now. They are behemoths in live service. Naughty Dog could perhaps focus in, create a little bit of a smaller game with fewer modes, and as long as they monetize it correctly, this time those earnings could allow them to add some of these more ambitious elements to the game, or even justify other multiplayer experiences from Naughty Dog. And look, a pared down team isn't the worst thing in the world. Naughty Dog's multiplayer team has always been pared down, and they've made some of the greatest multiplayer experiences with the greatest potential. These devs are very intentional and passionate about the art of multiplayer, and it shows in what they've been able to produce. And as I said earlier, the words from Naughty Dog devs has been that it is awesome. And look, I believe them, because the devs that are making this game are hardcore Factions fans. So I think that we can, and I believe that we will have our day of glory. But we're just gonna have to wait longer and let the dogs cook. I do just hope that Naughty Dog continues to embrace transparency and can offer us reassurances that this game is still coming along, and keep us informed on when we, the multiplayer community, can expect to begin getting the details that we have been craving for so long. But where do we go from here? Well, I think the best thing we can do as a community is to stay positive and stay passionate. We know there are tons of devs at Naughty Dog who care about this game immensely. There's a very inspiring quote from Bruce Straley, who says, "We make the games we want to play because no one else is going to make them." And Vinith Agarwal, the director of this game, has echoed this sentiment and said that this exact quote is a huge motivator for him as a developer. This notion to me is very powerful, and I think we have a lot to thank Vinith and the rest of the Naughty Dog multiplayer team for doing the work and trying to put together a game worthy of us fans, because let's be real, there are few out there that would even be willing to try to pull this off. So we need to support Naughty Dog, and we need to be patient. And I know that's hard because, if I'm being honest, there are so few games out there that really hold my attention in the same way that Factions does. But we do have to let them cook. And we have to believe that this game is in good hands with devs who are just as much of fans of this game as we are, and have the passion and intention that will be able to right this ship. But even though we should be patient and we should have faith, we also need to stay vocal that we want this game, so that Sony and the higher-ups at Naughty Dog know we are here, and know that they do have an audience that has been craving this type of game. Look, Pooper Troopers, there are a lot of big and influential voices out there that want Naughty Dog to just give up on this game, and we need to be the voice that tells them not to, that tells them that yes, this is worth it. And look, history's on our side here. It just so happens that the original vision for the original Factions was much grander in scope too, and it had to be pared down. I go into all that in this video that speaks on Naughty Dog's multiplayer history. You should check it out, but otherwise, remember, when lost in the darkness, look for the light. We will endure and survive. So long, Pooper Troopers.